It's June 27th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with North Korea's persistent sending of waste-carrying balloons. The North flew more of those balloons on Wednesday night for the third day in a row. The regime also claimed its missile test on Wednesday was aimed at securing multiple warhead missile capability and was successful. Identities of 11 more victims out of the 23 that died in the deadly battery plant fire have been newly confirmed. Police and the Labor Ministry raided the facility as a part of a probe over the accident. Armed soldiers and vehicles stormed into Bolivia's presidential palace in what appeared to be a failed coup attempt. Bolivian president called on the armed forces to demobilize immediately, dismissing Army General Commander Juan Jose Zuniga, who appears to have led Wednesday's move. North Korea announced hours ago that its ballistic missile launch on Wednesday was successful in testing its capability to develop missiles carrying multiple warheads. And the North also sent more trash-carrying balloons overnight. Our Peninsula reports.
At around 5:30 a.m. on Wednesday morning, a white trail of smoke was seen in South Korea's capital area, apparently from a ballistic missile tested by North Korea. South Korea's military said the missile was fired from the Pyongyang area, but explained that the North had failed, as the missile exploded mid-air after traveling some 250 kilometers. The military said it appeared to have been the North's attempt to test launch a hypersonic missile, and added that it would conduct further analysis of the launch alongside the U.S. But North Korea on Thursday claimed that its missile launch the day before was a successful test aimed at developing missiles carrying multiple warheads. Its state-run media said the separated warheads were guided correctly to 3 coordinated targets, and said the latest test was to secure the capability to fire multiple warheads on a single ballistic missile. It added that the test was carried out within a 170 to 200 kilometer radius, using the first stage engine of an intermediate-range solid-fuel ballistic missile. This follows the North's launching of more trash-carrying balloons on Wednesday night for the third day in a row. This was the 7th balloon launch in the past month by the regime. Announcing that the North has again floated another round of waste-carrying balloons, South Korea's military advised the public to report the balloons if spotted and refrain from touching them. To better address these threats from North Korea, South Korea on Wednesday resumed live fire drills on its western border islands for the first time in nearly 7 years. The country's Marine Corps fired around 290 artillery shells using its K-9 howitzers and Tommo multiple rocket launcher systems. This was the first such exercise after the country's decision earlier this month to suspend the Inter-Korean military agreement, which bans hostile activities, including live fire drills near the border. Peninsula, Arirang News.
During a meeting with South Korea's top envoy to Russia, a senior Russian diplomat called on South Korea to reconsider what he called a confrontational policy that could escalate tensions on the Korean Peninsula. According to Russia's top state media outlet TASS on Wednesday, Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Rudenko made the remarks during talks with South Korean Ambassador Lee Do-hun amid rising tensions between the two countries after a visit to Pyongyang by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Citing a press release from the Russian Foreign Ministry, Rudenko called on Seoul to find effective ways to achieve reconciliation, peace, and stability in Northeast Asia. The ministry also slammed recent remarks by senior Seoul officials on military cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. 11 more victims from the fire this week at a battery factory here in South Korea have been identified, with 9 remaining to be confirmed. And all the victims are presumed to have died from suffocation. Our An Sung-jin has the latest.
Search and seizure procedures have concluded after 7 hours at the lithium battery factory, which was the site of Monday's deadly fire, as well as at a related labor office. This comes as part of the police and the Ministry of Employment and Labor's investigation to identify the cause of the fire and those responsible. Earlier this week, 5 people were charged with violations of industrial laws over the fire. As the investigation into the deadly blaze at a lithium battery plant in Hwasong City, Gyeonggi-do Province continues, the identities of the victims are still being confirmed. On Wednesday afternoon, 11 more bodies have been identified. The Gyeonggi Nambu Provincial Police, in coordination with the National Forensic Service, confirmed DNA results and notified the families, including the families of foreign nationals. The 11 victims identified on Wednesday afternoon include 9 Chinese nationals, 1 Korean, and 1 from Laos, which leaves 14 people identified so far. DNA testing continues for the rest of the victims. As the National Forensic Service continues its autopsy, it has tentatively concluded that all of the victims suffocated. The government will continue its investigation as it turns out that the fire department had already warned about the danger of a fire due to rapid expansion of combustion, 3 months before the tragedy. Further allegations were made that the company didn't follow proper procedures when hiring foreign workers at the factory. The fire, which broke out on Monday after a series of explosions at a battery cell storage area, has left 23 dead and 8 injured. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea, the U.S. and Japan held their first inaugural industry ministerial meeting on Wednesday to seek ways to boost trilateral cooperation on supply chains and economic security. Now, what can the three sides get from each other? We're joined by Professor Yang Idong this morning. Welcome back, Professor Yang.
Hello, good morning.
Let's talk about the timing of the trilateral discussion. I mean, what makes them think that it's necessary to hold such a meeting now?
Well, in terms of the timing, you can think about a couple of events. The first, last year in August, there were 3 president summit meetings in Camp David, and they agreed to hold a regular industry ministers meeting, and they create a new agenda through the meeting. And second, the trigger in terms of the timing is G7 leaders met in this month, and they agreed to strengthen and enhance the very resilient and reliable supply chains in many different aspects for the sake of very secure international economics. So those are major drivers for this meeting. But I can think about the 2 major, very tangible and real drivers behind this. I mean, the first one is they want to acquire very reliable and resilient supply chains in 3 aspects: semiconductors, ore minerals, and clean energy. And second one is they want to very tightly control over advanced technology, particularly for the semiconductors. So these are the major economic drivers behind this the industry ministers meeting.
So the timing of their trilateral discussion can't be more appropriate. Now, it's the U.S. and Japan that South Korea is working on. Now, what makes the 2 sides, attractive partners for us hard to collaborate within securing supply chains and also economic security?
Well, we can talk about the 2 major reasons behind this 3 tripartite meeting. The first one is they want to control over China's influence in the global politics and economy. And one of the major strong evidence behind this, the incentive is they declare that they do share the common values in favor of liberty and human rights and law. And those 3 major principles are pretty much opposite to control mechanism of China. And the second major liaison that tied of those 3 countries is, again, they want to keep alignment with the principles announced by G7 meeting leaders' statement. So they want to strengthen and acquire very reliable and resilient supply chains. And through this industry ministers meeting, they have come up with a very detailed agenda that have helped materialize and realize those very vague value systems proposed by G7 leaders meeting.
So common values and interests that are putting the 3 sides together this time. Now, what is there for South Korea, for us, to offer, and in what way could it possibly lead the trilateral cooperation in supply chain and trade?
Well, first of all, Korea is one of the very leading countries in semiconductors. Now, the same size of semiconductors is about $600 billion, even though there are many different, subdivisions. And Korea has competed very, seriously and very fiercely against the United States and China and Japan. And now China wants to take over their leaderships in the semiconductors that have threatened the national security of the United States and also Japan. So that is one of the major reasons why the United States has invited Korea and Japan to, take part in this tripartite meeting. A second one is Korea also has very strong leadership in the carbon neutrality. They The carbon neutrality was the vision proposed by Paris Agreement in 2015. And everyone knows that by 2050, all this world will live in the net zero, in other words, carbon-free economy. And yes, an IPEF proposed by President Biden about a couple of years ago, and Korea has come up with a very detailed agenda for this IPEF that has consisted of 14 Asian countries, including Japan. So these are the major reasons why Korea has come up with the strong leadership for this tripartite industry ministers meeting.
Definitely. And also in a separate meeting, Seoul and Tokyo agreed to newly launch this working group on cooperation in the supply chain for clean hydrogen and ammonia. Let's talk about that.
Well, the major reason why the special meetings with those two countries is very important is we should keep in mind that Japan and Korea have very similar infrastructure and also the energy consumption patterns. In other words, if we have a problem in occur raw materials, in core minerals, the same problem will occur in Japan as well. So both of Japan and Korea may have shared very serious concerns about the China's restricted control and also their ban on the export of the gallium and germanium announced by in August last year, and also the China declared they would control the export of the graphite in December. Those materials are very key core material ingredients for semiconductors. So, I mean, Japan and Korea may need to collaborate and cooperate very fiercely to release all these restricted control over core minerals, particularly for the semiconductors. And besides, both Japan and Korea have agreed on the principles of carbon neutrality, as I already mentioned. And they have pronounced very detailed plans, so-called the NDC, National Determined Contributions, that have provided the visions to control their carbon emissions. For example, Korea will reduce their carbon emissions by 40% compared to 2018 until 2030. And Japan also declared they want to reduce carbon emissions by 46% until 2030. Compared to 2013. So in many different aspects, we can, very clearly confirm that both Japan and Korea have come with lots of commonality in their future visions, particularly in their peer economies and the future industrial and also the international politics situations.
Right, from consumption to goals to achieve. Now, Professor Yang, before I let you go, you briefly touched upon this. The U.S. has been asking Seoul and Tokyo to join its efforts to, enforce export control measures to block China's access to advanced chip industry, technology, and AI. The question is, will South Korea and Tokyo join the U.S.?
Well, overall, I do believe that both Korea and Japan will join the efforts of the United States. But in terms of severity, I think the Korea may have come up with different attitudes against Japan, because even though the Korean companies have taken over major market shares in semiconductors, when it comes to semiconductor producing equipment, Korean companies are taking up very small portions in the global market, less than about 3%. So that's why, again, our Minister of Industries have declared that, we may be very hesitant not to export the semiconductor equipment to China. So Japan and Korea, in principle, may share these some concerns and principles of the United States, but when it comes to the very detailed agenda, Korea may be a little hesitant than Japan to join the United States to control every aspects of advanced technologies to China.
All right, Professor Yang, it was a pleasure to have you with us today. We appreciate it, as always.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Having the highest suicide rate among OECD member nations could be just one of the indicators that shows South Koreans are not happy. The government has now placed looking after people's mental health as one of its top priorities. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
A series of policies dedicated to the mental health of citizens was announced on Wednesday after President Yoon became the first South Korean leader to chair a meeting specifically dedicated to the mental well-being of the people. Hosting the first meeting of a committee he created last year, Yoon vowed a complete shift in the government's approach to mental health.
이제 국민의 이 마음을, 정신 건강을 돌보는 문제가 매우 중요한 국정 과제가 됐습니다. 우리가 아무리 세계 10위권 경제 강국, 글로벌 문화 강국으로 도약했다고 해도 국민이 한 사람 한 사람의 국민이 행복하다고 생각하지 않으면 아무 소용이 없는 것입니다.
The committee is tasked with focusing on 3 areas: prevention, treatment, and recovery. Regarding prevention, the government is set to start a project that will provide mental counseling to 1 million people by 2027, while providing free mental health checkups every 2 years for those in their 20s and 30s instead of once every 10 years. To promote rapid treatment, it will expand the current mental health emergency response teams nationwide. For recovery, the government will create rehabilitation centers focused on mental illnesses.
The detailed mental health policy plans announced during today's meeting are a roadmap created through surveys of patients and their families and input from medical, psychiatry, counseling, and welfare experts. No other government has ever done this before.
In the meantime, President Yoon said changing the public's perception of mental health is even more important than the policies themselves.
그렇지만 더 중요한 것은 정신 건강을 바라보는 우리 사회의 시선을 바꾸는 것입니다. 정신질환은 일반 질환과 마찬가지로 치료할 수 있고 치료하면 낫는다, 위험하지 않다는 인식이 우리 사회에 뿌리내리도록 해야 됩니다.
An official at the presidential office said the committee will have subcommittees, and one of them will consist of marketing and PR experts to create campaigns on breaking down the barriers of public perception toward mental health. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Starting today, medical professors at Severance Hospital, one of the big 5 major hospitals in South Korea, have decided to go on an indefinite strike in protest against the government's medical school quota expansion. Announcing this on Wednesday, the hospital's emergency committee said professors will have the option to choose whether or not to join the walkout. But it did add that treatment in essential areas, such as the emergency room, the intensive care unit, and child delivery room, will not be affected by the strike. Professors at Asan Medical Center have also said they plan on joining the walkout starting next Thursday. But medical professors at other major hospitals, such as Seoul National University, Catholic University, and Samsung Medical Center, have said they won't stage a walkout for now to minimize a medical disruption. We're less than a month away from the start of the Paris Olympics, and Team Korea is working hard to make sure athletes are ready to push for medals. Our Choi Soo-hyung visited their training center.
South Korea's athletes' faces were filled with excitement and anticipation. In the upcoming 2024 Paris Olympics this summer, around 10,500 athletes from 206 countries will compete in 32 sports. Team Korea will comprise slightly over 140 athletes to participate in 21 sports, its smallest delegation since the 50 at the 1976 Montreal Olympics. At the recent 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics 3 years ago, South Korea won a total of 20 medals, including 6 gold, 4 silver, and 10 bronze, finishing in the top 15 overall rankings. Here at the National Training Center in Jincheon, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, Team Korea is training hard in the final preparations for the Olympics before heading to Paris with the goal of winning 5 gold medals and securing a place in the top 15 overall rankings. In archery, Korea claimed 4 gold medals in Tokyo and expect to get good result in Paris.
In Tokyo, there were no spectators due to COVID-19. But the Paris Olympics are expected to be filled with many fans. We are very excited and have been preparing a lot, so we ask for strong support. My goal is to win a gold medal in the men's team event.
Swimmer Hwang Sonu, who won 6 medals, including 2 golds at the 2023 Asian Games in Hangzhou, showed his confidence.
Over the past 3 years, we have honed our skills and gained valuable experience, and we are determined to show the country excellent performances.
Weightlifter Park Hae-jung aims for a medal in the discipline for Team Korea for the first time in 16 years since the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
Since it's my first Olympics, I feel very nervous, but I'm also eager to go to Paris quickly. Although my goal is not necessarily a gold medal, I am working hard with my coach to ensure I at least make it into the medal podium.
Badminton star An Se-young also said that she will deliver her best performance to the nation in Paris.
Earlier this year, I was constantly worried and had a tough time due to injuries. However, now that I am focusing on the Olympics, my condition has improved significantly. I can prepare well. I believe I can achieve good results.
Meanwhile, following concerns about the extreme heat in Paris at the end of July, the Korean Sport and Olympic Committee has pledged to support the athletes in every way, including providing cooling jackets to ensure they can do their best. Regardless of the color or number of medals, the Paris Summer Olympics, which will bring great joy and excitement to the nation, will begin a 17-day journey on July 26. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News, Sincheon.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn to stories from around the world. We begin today in Bolivia, where the country's armed forces surrounded key government buildings in the country's capital, La Paz, on Wednesday. After almost a full day of the attempted coup, which saw condemnation from domestic and international communities, soldiers were seen beginning to withdraw from the area. Bolivian citizens gathered in the vicinity of the presidential palace to demonstrate against the army's presence in the city center, as armored vehicles rammed into the palace earlier the same day. A dramatic scene captured on Bolivian television showed Bolivia's President Luis Arce confronting troops in the palace hallway, saying, "I am your captain, and I order you to withdraw your soldiers." Arce denounced the armed forces' actions and sacked the army's general commander, Juan José Zuniga, who was allegedly behind the coup attempt. Earlier, Zuniga had told reporters that 3 army chiefs had come together to take action due to an economic crisis in the country, saying he had public support. The newly appointed Army Chief Jose Wilson Sanchez ordered all mobilized armed forces to return to base. Moving over to Kenya, the country's President William Ruto announced on Wednesday that he will not sign a controversial finance bill following mass protests across the country that have left at least 23 people dead. In a televised address Wednesday, Ruto confirmed that he had decided not to sign the 2024 finance bill as the people had spoken. This comes ahead of the 1 million people march planned for Thursday, which the Kenyan protesters say will still take place despite Ruto scrapping the bill. The budget bill was passed by Parliament on Tuesday, despite widespread opposition to tax increases it included. Parliament building was set alight on the same day, while there were also violent clashes between the protesters and the police nationwide. American journalist Evan Gershkovich, who is the first U.S. reporter to be arrested on espionage charges in Russia since the Cold War, went on trial on Wednesday in Yekaterinburg, some 15 months after first being locked up in a Moscow jail. The Wall Street Journal reporter was seen stood in a metal and glass cage in a Russian courtroom with his head shaven, smiling to the cameras before the trial was held behind closed doors. Russian prosecutors claim that Gershkovich was collecting classified information about a Yekaterinburg-based Russian tank manufacturer on behalf of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal and the U.S. government strongly rejected the charge, with the White House saying that Russia is using the journalist as a bargaining chip. Gershkovich faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted. As sweltering temperatures in Washington, D.C. rose to some 37 degrees Celsius over the past few days, a wax statue of Abraham Lincoln partially melted, causing its head to fall off. The 1.8-meter-high wax statue had been placed outside Garrison Elementary School, which is on the site of Camp Barker, a Civil War-era refugee camp. The statue, which is also a functioning candle, was part of the Wax Monument series by Virginia-based artist Sandy Williams IV, which creates wax replicas of popular public monuments and cultural icons. The head from the wax sculpture is now under repair.
Good morning. Have an umbrella handy if you're in the southern parts of Korea. Right now, wet clouds are passing over Jeju, dropping 30 millimeters an hour of heavy monsoon showers, which will gradually spread to the rest of south as the morning goes on. Further south, we'll see heavier showers, and until Friday morning, most of Jeju could see up to 100 millimeters of monsoon rain. And the rest of the southern provinces could see 5 to 60 millimeters. Meanwhile, it's going to be another scorcher under burning sunshine in central regions, with temperatures going up as high as yesterday. So Seoul and Daejeon could go up to 32 degrees, but southern parts will have 1 to 7 degrees lower daytime highs, topping out at 25 degrees in Busan and Jeju. Now tomorrow looks to be hotter in the capital, while monsoon season starts this weekend in central regions. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for our Friday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, who's lying? Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
Arirang TV is conducting a quality and satisfaction evaluation to enhance the broadcast service for viewers worldwide. Please visit our website www.arirang.com to provide your honest opinions. Participants will be entered into a draw for a chance to win prizes. Overseas TV viewer survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
We're here to bring a new type of news show. New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Thursday, June 27th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin and you're watching News Generation. Today we're joined by Choi Ji-hee. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. And Im Sang-yeop.
Good to see you guys.
Lovely to have you. Both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Now we're going to head right into our main discussion of the day. Now, what comes to your mind when you think of the term generation gap? Now, many of you might picture differences in perspectives and ideologies between older and younger generations, but these days, some people are actually noticing these differences even among their peers. Take a look at the screen to find out more.
A survey conducted by a domestic job search platform among more than 2,000 millennial and Gen Z office workers in Korea showed that almost 76% of respondents felt this way. By generation gap, they refer to differing views on work-life balance, interests, ways of thinking, workplace attire and etiquette, manners, and communication styles, including tone of voice. Interestingly, those surveyed noticed these differences most among their same-level colleagues, meaning those in the same age group. This finding suggests that feeling a generation gap may no longer be about age differences. What is causing the younger generation to feel so different from each other?
Well, so let's first talk about the stat that we just saw in the VCR. So here in the studio, I want to ask you guys, do you also agree with this statistics? In other words, have you also felt this generation gap among your peers or colleagues in the same age group as you at work?
Well, surprisingly, there are times when I feel the generational gap as well, whether at work or even within my family, among my siblings as well. So simple matters such as arriving at the office earlier than expected to prepare in advance, or choosing personal time over team dinners, or differences in opinions about work attire illustrate the generational gap I experience with some colleagues of the same age group at work. Now, an interesting survey reveals which employees of which ranking feel the generation gap the most at work. So let's take a look at the screen to find out the results. So interestingly, it shows that staff members at the lowest level of the organization feel the generation gap the most. And the ones that are the managerial levels, like the general managers, assistant managers, and even the executives, they feel less of these gap compared to just the staff members who've just entered their work.
Right, so the fact that the stat shows that the lowest level employees actually feel the generation gap most, I think that refers to millennials and Gen Z because we have a shorter amount of experience at work when compared to our parents' generations or even the previous generations. And talking about Yoo-ji, you've answered that you felt a generation gap among your family members too, and also your colleagues at work. Well, I can't really say whether I felt it or not because you guys all know who my colleagues are. So now I'm going to toss my question to Sang-yeop. So have you felt this generation gap too?
Actually, I felt this kind of generation gap when I'm teaching students
students at college. So when I was first hired as an instructor at the college, I first thought that I might be able to get along well with the students because I was one of the young instructors among the faculties. But it turned out we had some kind of different perspectives regarding the class and all the schedules. Whenever I send like notifications to the students about my class, there are often cases that some of them reply to my calls like several days later, or even some of them responded to me the day before the start of the class. So for me, this could be quite annoying because for me, smooth progress and fast progress of the work and the class are really important, but it turned out that for some students that's not the case. And also there were often cases when the students sent me an email and it somehow sounded a bit casual or even rude, as if they're sending those emails to their friends. So as you can see here, even though I'm in the same generation group as my students, there were like cases that I felt kind of different gap with the students. So for me, I think the school is like the microscopic version of the society. So whenever I see these kind of students, I kind of worry whether they can actually keep their earnings in the society when they move on after the graduation. So with that being said, I feel like a conde, so I'll just stop here.
No, but I agree with you. Speaking of students who communicate with their
you also teach students,
I do. And I was quite shocked how I received Kakao Talks, the messenger app in Korea. I received messages late at night or even in the morning, like late mornings. And I've told students to send their assignments through email, but they would just Kakao Talk me the files. So I was quite shocked.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Maybe I am a conde.
Well, I think both of our panelists have a lot to say about today's topic, which is a good thing. Now, to point out once again, what was once considered differences in thoughts or behaviors between generations is now being spotted among younger people, as the examples that you guys just given. So we always want to know about the reason why, what's behind this. So why do you think that we are seeing these differences in thoughts or behaviors between similarly aged people?
Right. Well, in order to understand this phenomenon, I think it's important to understand the typical organizational culture here in the country. So the culture is usually characterized by a strong emphasis on hierarchy based on age and seniority, formal ways of addressing one another, a collectivist mindset as well, and the significance of dinner gatherings for bonding.
Which we call 회식.
Yes, which we call 회식, which Eugene really likes.
Sorry.
And the value placed on teamwork. So although it's often said that millennials and Gen Zs have brought about significant changes compared to the older generation, there are still individuals within the younger generation who maintain that traditional mindset. I guess because they grew up with the parents who have these mindsets that could have influenced them. But this difference in mindset is leading to a generational gap even within the younger generation. And I think the gaps and clashes also occur because the MZers tend to be very individualistic. They have a strong character and always are willing to voice out their opinions.
So that could basically or kind of clash with the younger generation who have what we are used to calling as traditional mindsets, which could lead to these differences in thoughts and behaviors. Now, Sang-hyuk, is there anything that you would like to add regarding the reasons why we're seeing these differences?
Yeah, sure. So as Ji mentioned, we can often find this gap within the generation in the corporate space. There are some MZers who clearly set the boundary between the work and their lifestyle. But meanwhile, there are also young people who prefer to work overtime so they can get the benefits later on, maybe like a promotion in the future. And also, when it comes to the perspective towards one's lifestyle, we can also see the generation gap within the same age groups. A few years ago, I remember the YOLO syndrome hitting Korea greatly. And there were some youth who pursued the YOLO lifestyle. But at the same time, there are also some young people who are interested in financial investments and who tend to save their assets for their retirements. So you can see here that there is a different ideas and gap even within the same age group. And I think this is because the Gen Zs and our generation are so eager to express our opinions. We we're seeing this clash of conflicts.
So as much as we like to express ourselves, I think that we're seeing a more diverse range of thoughts, ideologies, and etc. Now, for those of you who want to know more about what this generation gap is, as it's like fairly a new term, to give you a better understanding, we actually prepared a short skit for you so that you could which could help you understand today's topic better. So let's get into action.
All right.
Yes. Right, so I am currently playing the role of the new manager of a team, and Ji-hee and Sang-yeok, they are my what should I call them?
Subordinates or
juniors? Yeah, they're my junior workers.
She's our new boss.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the boss today. So right, and to congratulate my new position as a manager, I really want to have a nice lunch with my two lovely colleagues, Ji-hee and Sang-yeok. So. What do you think?
Ready, action. Shall we start?
Yes, we shall.
Okay.
Action.
Oh, hello, our boss, 부장님. 부장님, so you're new here. Did you want to have lunch with us?
Yes, I really, really want to have lunch with both of you. So I wish that we could set a time so that we could grab delicious lunch together.
Okay, you're gonna buy us, right? Treat us?
Of course, because I'm the boss.
Okay, well, I'll ask Sang-yeok if he's willing to join as well, okay?
Okay.
Sang-yeok, so we have our new boss here, and she wants to have lunch with us today. Would you like to join? She really wants to have lunch with both of us.
Sorry, Jay. Recently, I'm on this new diet. I brought chicken breast and protein bars for today's lunch, so I think I will not be able to attend the lunch.
Oh, but can you postpone your diet? Or, I mean, you have lunch every day, you know, it's just today.
Sorry. Hey, lunch hour is my personal time. Our boss does not have the right to disturb it.
Okay, well, don't blame me if the boss starts hating you, okay?
I'm fine. I'm totally cool with it.
All right.
I'm going to write Sang-yeok's name down on my blacklist.
All right, so we ended up having lunch.
Just the two of us. So Sang-yeok had his chicken breast and his own healthy meal plan.
MZ.
Right. So this kind of shows what we call the generation gap that's being experienced among millennials and Gen Z. Ji-hee, I think you represented a more traditional mindset where you think that if your boss wants to have lunch together, then why not have lunch together, because it's a collectivist and office culture here in Korea is still kind of like a hierarchical culture, while on the other hand, Sang-yeok kind of represented the what do we call it?
The typical MCs who value life balance.
Yeah, who are really self-expressive and etc. So I hope that our skit helped you guys understand what this generation gap we're talking about today. Now, to expand our discussion even further, we also asked our viewers in what situations or for what reasons they clash with their peers, and here's what 3 of them said. So if we look at the comments, Brodo Kiba says Gen Z colleagues often bring a fresh perspective with their strong digital skills and desire for quick feedback. Millennials, on the other hand, tend to emphasize collaboration and work-life balance more prominently. Infantry says, I work for the government and a good portion of MZ want to have expanded teleworking schedules, but of course, what we do is very people-oriented, so there is a big push to go back into the office. This has had some divisive reactions from new workers. Leon says, for me, millennials are more comfortable with a mix of communication styles, including email, phone calls, and video conferencing. Gen Z are highly digital and prefer instant communication through text messages, messaging apps, and online collaboration tools. So based on the comments from our viewers, we can definitely see that the younger generation, the millennials and Gen Z, are feeling a difference in how they think, how they work, for example, in the office environment. So we're definitely seeing a generation gap in other parts of the world among the younger generation as well. Now, to find out even further whether this is an issue that's prevalent in other parts of the world, we're going to invite a millennial who has experience working in both Korea and the United States. We'll be right back, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Today we're joined by Jera Lim, a product manager at Adobe in San Francisco. She has experience working both in Korea and the United States. Welcome, Jera, to the show.
Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you all.
Great. It's great to have you. So our first question for you, Jera, is could you just briefly introduce yourself a bit more for our viewers and also share your experience of working in Korea?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jared Lim. I am currently living in San Francisco, working as a product manager at Adobe. I came to US 3 years ago to do my MBA at Duke and graduated last year and joined Adobe as a full-time. Before coming to US, I used to work at Samsung Card for 5 years, and I was also a product manager there, mostly working on managing online payments and building new fintech services on our app. And I decided to come to US because as a product manager, I developed my future career goal to work at Silicon Valley one day and build a product that can deliver impact to millions of people. And I'm still working towards to my end goal, but I believe I'm at a good starting point since I am at Silicon Valley now.
I see. You seem to be building a great career over there.
Right.
Well, while working in Korea, though, did you experience this generation gap that we're talking about, or differences in ways of thinking and lifestyle with colleagues who were similar in age to you?
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question because you're asking me about the generation gap with the people who are in my generation. So I would say, yes, I did notice some sort of generation gap, even between the people around my ages. So for example, many of my peers were more traditional in their approach to work and hierarchy and placing a strong emphasis on seniority and formalities. And in contrast, I value more casual and collaborative work environment. And I am personally type of person who always question the rationale behind the decision and value open discussion. So, like sort of never say no culture was something that I couldn't resonate. And additionally, I think lifestyle preference varied. So with some colleagues preferring to spend their free time in ways that aligns with the traditional Korean culture, such as, like 회식, which is like group dinner, like a lot of like boundings between the teammates, whereas I lean more towards to spending time doing my own personal activities and balancing out my work life and personal life. So I think this differences highlighted like unique cultural context and generational influence that presents in Korean workplace.
I can totally relate to that because I'm also against the 회식 culture as well. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Did you experience something similar when you were working in the States? How does it compare to working in Korea?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say there's like no generation gap here in US. I mean, even here, people make tons of joke about generation gap between like Gen Z, millennial, Gen X, and boomer. It's like a famous joke in Instagram. And even like between the similar generations, there is definitely different ways of thinking. But however, I feel it's certainly less pronounced compared to Korea. And from my point of view, the large part of this difference comes from the individualistic culture in the US. So American society is more diverse in culture, nationality, and ethnicity. So people are just more used to embracing differences and respecting the boundaries. In contrast, Korean society is pretty much community-based, focusing on finding commonalities between each other. And this fundamental cultural difference dilutes the generation gap and conflicts in the US, as people are trained to respect not only the difference between culture, but also differences in their personalities across generation and also differences in their mentality.
That was really like a sharp analysis. Now, last but not least, Gerald, I want to ask you, in your opinion, what is one way we can bridge the differences among similarly aged colleagues?
Yeah, so I think the key is to respect each other's differences in life value, not just like related to ages, but in all aspects. And one toxic trait that I observed in Korean society is the lack of tolerance for diversity in cultural, ethical, and mindset difference. So I think addressing this problem will definitely help. And to give more practical answer, fostering open communication among among colleagues is essential. I think personally it's important to not monitor or record these conversations because many fear like facing disadvantages for voicing out their opinions. And also I think treating everyone's opinion equally and not weighing them differently based on like what's their position, what's your age, and how long have you been in this org. Like I think these things shouldn't be matter. Everyone's opinion have to be treated equally. And another opinion that I have is probably incentivizing the ideas that could be helpful for enhancing the work culture can also motivate people to participate more on building the healthy work culture.
Some great advice to end off. All right, thank you, Jira, so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. So last but not least, back to us here in the studio. What do you think are some of the ways we can resolve the conflicts? You can just expand on what Jera said or anything in your opinion.
Well, I just want to echo what Jera said. We must always remember that we can't force someone to change, you know. An easier way to get along with different people is to really adopt an open and flexible mindset towards differences. So really try to understand and respect the different perspectives that others have.
Right. I think it's always really important to understand and put yourself into the shoes of others because it's such a colorful society nowadays. Now, what is your advice, Sang-yeol?
Well, I think it's a good sign that we're seeing different and diverse mindsets within the same generation because with that being said, we can create a society where we can accept more diverse ideas and opinions, and we can also openly discuss about those different kinds of things. So as every people have their own different colors, I think that's what makes our society even more lively.
Right, definitely. So I hope that our discussion today helps those who are facing this generation gap among similarly aged people. And NewsGen is here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks today to Choi Ji-hee.
Always a pleasure.
And Yoon Sang-yeol.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
Welcome.
Now, us.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? Welcome.